Now morning show, just shy of 15 minutes to the hour of 7 o'clock. Our conversation continues. And joining us now is the CEO of AmCham Trinidad and Tobago, Nirad Tewarie. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning, Natasha. Good morning to all your viewers and, of course, everyone in studio.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you this early in the morning, of course. I think one of the most important questions that we need to ask you right now, Mr. Tewarie, is the business climate in Trinidad and Tobago. Admittedly, yes, we're just shy of a few hours post the most recent victory. But let's speak about the most recent return with our now Prime Minister-elect. How does AmCham Trinidad and Tobago anticipate shifts in business, the business environment, the government, and so much more?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, congratulations on behalf of AmCham Trinidad and Tobago to Prime Minister-elect Kamala Persad-Visessa and the team that will be unfolding, I guess, over the next few days. We look forward to working with the government, as we always do, to improve the business environment, to create more investment opportunities, and, of course, contribute to socio-economic development. Whenever there's a change of government, we see somewhat of a shift in priorities. What we would hope is that the incoming government would take a look at what the last government has done, and those things that have been positive, that they would continue, and the things that need tweaking, that we would see, ardent efforts to accelerate those things. Number one has to be crime, although it is not specifically a business reform. Addressing the crime situation will go a long way in improving the business climate. And then there are some other things that we have not made significant progress on in recent times, including customs reform and the ease of doing business logistically, as well as accelerating the digitization of government so that it's easier for anyone to do business, whether you're an existing business or a new entrant to the market. And if we start to address those things, I think there's some low-hanging fruits. You will see confidence starting to rise and hopefully greater local and foreign investment as we move forward.
One of the things that you would have mentioned there, Mr. Tewarie, we really need to unpack when we're speaking about, of course, when it comes to trade and investments on an international, in an international landscape, but also the crime and our business community as well. And I mean, in light of the recent conversations that we've had over crime and public safety, what role would you say international collaborations are going to be able to play and will play in enhancing security measures to protect our business owners, foster a stable investment climate, particularly, and ensure that we have continued growth?
Well, we have an array of international partners who regularly and consistently have supported our anti-crime efforts. Of course, the largest one of those is the United States, which has consistently been engaged with our various law enforcement agencies in providing support, but it starts at home. So we have to ensure that the police service is able to earn the trust of the population by being able to increase their detection rates. We have to ensure that the judiciary is efficient so that cases are heard and people who are committing crime, whether it be what we see as violent and street crime, but also white-collar crime, are arrested, prosecuted, convicted, and serve their time. And then we have to then dismantle the criminal networks that make people feel unsafe by, as I said, addressing the money that supports them and then addressing the infrastructure on the ground. And with that, we'll get a lot of help from our international partners in so doing, and of course, collaboration with our CARICOM brothers and sisters through agencies such as CARICOM Impacts can be important in that as we seek to make the CSME more effective and allow for the CSME to be realized in its truest form.
Now, with these things that you've just mentioned there, one of the things that automatically comes to mind are timelines and the fact that these are not things that we're going to see overnight. But in your experience and in discussions with those who are within the chamber, what would you say would be a feasible expectation for starting to see these conversations happening and hopefully seeing some change?
Well, I think the conversations are happening. I think we have to move beyond conversation to action. It depends on what you mean by overnight. I mean, today to tomorrow, sure, we wouldn't see anything. But I think that the UNC would have recognized that crime was a significant issue affecting the population and made solving crime or reducing crime a significant part of their campaign platform. So I would expect that we would see some specific metrics being put forward and some aggressive action toward solving crime. And hopefully we will start seeing the results of that within a few months and certainly by the end of this year.
And also, in light of this conversation, if we can touch briefly on the relationship when it comes to trade relations with Trinidad and Tobago and the U.S. Of course, that is something that is in keen focus with the fact that, as with most throughout the world, we have become subject, if not all throughout the world, when it comes to the universal tariffs and so much more. One of the things that we do know with the American Chamber of Commerce is that you do have the initiatives and collaborations, let's say, within the tech sector when it comes to ensuring that trade ties are enhanced. From where you sit, do you see the possibility of this being deepened over the coming years, let's say? And again, do you think that we can put a timeline to this, or is this also going to be a case of wait and see as the relationships continue to strengthen?
I expect that the government will, the new government will, like the previous government did, try to do things to increase trade between Trinidad and Tobago and the U.S. as well as within the Americas generally. There's a lot of talk about the 10% tariff, but if the whole world is subject to a minimum of a 10% tariff with the U.S., the largest economy in the world, it means that we are there at the lowest possible tariff rate, and therefore there may actually be opportunities for us to attract some businesses that would have been operating in other jurisdictions that now face higher tariffs to look at Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean generally as an alternative from which to penetrate the U.S. market. That is, of course, if there's the expectation that these tariffs will continue over the long term. But we remind everyone, as we said from the beginning, when President-elect Trump won the election back in November, that generally the position of that administration has been transactional and binational. Bilateral as opposed to multilateral, generally speaking. So, of course, you would have seen the UNC in opposition take certain positions that I think were designed to attract the attention of the Trump administration and developing relations with the administration and the various parts of the administration, because the U.S. government is not a monolith. You have the Secretary of State, you have the State Department, you have the Department of Commerce, and then you have special envoys. In our case, to Venezuela, for example. So we have to ensure that we understand the makeup of the U.S. administration as it relates to us in particular, and then very deliberately go after the building of relationships that would allow us to further our interests while, of course, maintaining our sovereignty.
Something that, of course, is critical and key, maintaining sovereignty right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's move away from the U.S. conversation and let's go a little bit to the energy sector, because, of course, that's something that many have been focusing on. And to be fair, given our economy is completely understandable and our history as well, but particularly when it comes to our previous administration's focus on energy security and projects like the Dragon gas deal. How does the AmCham view the future of energy partnerships and investments in the current political context?
Yeah, so I mean, look, as you said, it's been critical to our development and will likely be critical to our development through the medium term, not just the short term. That is having sources of petroleum, gas in particular, and if we can increase oil production. Last night, Prime Minister-elect Prasad Visesa did double down and reiterate her promise to reopen Petrotrin. We'll have to see what that means. And of course, I haven't seen the final results, but what I've seen this morning indicates that the two Labour candidates in Point Fortin and Labrie have won, and therefore will be in a position to exert some level of influence, at least in the legislature, possibly in the cabinet as that unfolds. So we'll have to see what that means. There are some things in train. There's some drilling activity, exploration activity taking place within Trinidad and Tobago's waters, and there are some potential projects that are yet to be greenlit or receive the final investment decision, is the correct term. And therefore, we expect the new government to work with the energy companies who are able to produce to try and ensure that while Trinidad and Tobago receives a good return on the exploitation of our resources, it's also attractive so that we can start not just meeting the shortfall as fields decline, but increasing our gas production. With Venezuela, it's going to be a little more tricky because the UNC in opposition had taken a more definitive position on the Venezuelan government. And so, you know, we'll have to see in government what the UNC will do to maintain relations or rebuild relations with Venezuela and the US. But I would be surprised, and we would be surprised, if accessing cross-border gas were not part of the UNC government's overall strategy. And in there, while we talk about Venezuela, it is possible that the discussions between a UNC government and the government of Guyana could be a little different even than under the previous administration, and therefore there may be a strategic pivot to Guyana in a bigger way to see if we can further discussions to process some Guyanese gas here. And that may be, it's too early to tell, but that may be something that is added to the conversation in a bigger way than it is now.
Mr. Tewarie, that's definitely something that hopefully we'll be able to have you back on the show to discuss and unpack as time moves on. However, before we close, let's speak about the vision for international partnerships by AmChamTT. How do you see these collaborations really shaping our economic and also our social landscape over the next few years?
Well, I mean, look, we're small islands, and therefore for us to thrive and thrive sustainably, we have to engage with other countries to further our mutual interests. And that starts with the CARICOM. I think that there is a lot of collaboration that is possible. We now have a CARICOM Secretary General of the OAS. What that would mean in the context of the US's view of multilateral agencies is to be seen, but I think that this administration would be keen to engage with Secretary General Ramdin. I expect that the administration will be keen to deepen partnerships as all governments have with our key international partners. The Canadian elections have resulted in a Liberal Party win, which would probably mean that the Canadian government will continue to be open to development assistance and development cooperation with the Caribbean in a bigger way than if the Conservatives had one. And of course, the U.S., through its decision to exempt Caribbean shipping from the high tariffs on Chinese-made ships, has signaled that it recognizes that there's a need to treat with this region a little differently than the rest of the world, which is a very good thing. And we hope and expect that the new government will continue to build on those things and continue to engage our international partners, the IDB and CAF, which the last government would have been very active with, and which the previous UNC administration or UNC-led administration would have signed us up for. That is CAF, our membership in CAF. So we expect that the international cooperation with international agencies and other countries will continue and will deepen, because it is important for our development moving forward.
Mr. Tewarie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Have an excellent day.